Welcome back to the channel. My name is Dave, and today I want to talk about VTV, the Vanguard Value ETF. This is an ETF that I've been adding to my portfolio recently. I've also been selling some puts against it with the hopes that the stock market continues to pull back some and I can pick up some additional shares. So we'll talk through all that. We're going to take a little bit of a dive into VTV and try to understand exactly what it is and why we might add it to our portfolio. But I really love value right now, so I'm adding value. And the Vanguard Value ETF, for me, is the best value ETF. It's a fact, like the fact that Billy Crystal was in Greece. You can't argue it. It's just a fact. So with all that said, let's get started. Whoop. Real quick, what is VTV? It's an ETF, exchange traded fund. So that's simply a basket of stocks that tracks a particular index. So just like if you went to your grocery store right after the holidays, you're on a diet now, you decide you're going to focus on the outside of the store where all the great fruits and veggies are instead of the middle where the cakes and cookies and soda pop is. That's VTV, because what VTV has to do is they track the CRSP US Large Cap Value Index. So it's going to track this index that was created by crsp.org, and you go check that out if you'd like. But it's going to use several factors like PE and price to sales, and it's going to grab all these stocks together and decide what should be in this value ETF for us. So I'm adding VTV because I think value is where it's at right now. It's my diet of choice. It's a fact. Just like the fact that Jamie Foxx was in New Edition's If It Isn't Love video. It's simply a fact. So let's start by looking at this chart of VTV over the last years. This is a 1-year chart. And what you're going to kind of see here is that it's had a nice year, but since May, it really has underperformed the overall market. And that's one of the reasons that I actually like value at this point. I've seen a lot of individual stocks pull back 5, 10, 15, 20%. Others have performed fairly well. So therefore, we get this kind of sideways action there since May, where it's just kind of coming over here, moving around between this 135 and 145 price tag. So I like where it's at right now, and I think we've got significant upside going forward. So I'm buying some shares, and I'm looking to pick up some more by selling puts around that 135 to 140 level. And I'll talk a little bit more about the option side of this at the end. But looking pretty good chart-wise. Now, if we take a look at some of the information, the very first thing I always like to point out on an ETF is the net expense ratio. So for this particular one, it's 0.04% for this passively managed ETF. So that means for every $10,000 that you invest, you're going to lose $4 a year to have this thing managed for you. So not bad at all. And that doesn't come out on day 1 or day 365. It happens every single day, but over the course of a year, it equals $4. So not bad at all. Now, the performance over the last year, the 1-year return, is over 22%. And over the last 10 years, we've been on this incredible run, and it's been at 13%. So all kinds of ETFs have performed really well over the last 10 years. So dig a little deeper, because that's going to be kind of the topic. Everybody talks about the performance of the last 10 years. We don't really care. If we're putting our money in today, we want to know about the next 10 years. So we want to look at these things thinking about how is it going to perform moving forward. Now, this is a fairly large fund at $86 billion in net assets. So fairly large for value. So it does pay out about 2.2% dividend annually. So that'll put a nice bit back in your pocket on a quarterly basis. And it has actually grown over 7% over the past 5 years. So that's been pretty impressive growth as well when it comes to the distribution yield. So let's take a quick look at portfolio composition. Now, you're going to notice that this is highly exposed to North America, 99% plus. So you're really not going to get any exposure to the rest of the world, which you should have. So as you're looking at this, you might also look at a couple other ETFs that I would suggest. It's something like VWO, Emerging Markets, or VGK, which focuses in Europe. And that'll get you some exposure to the rest of the world. Plenty of great ETFs out there to expose you. And especially when you're looking out at the United States, I love ETFs. Now, if we flash down here to fund characteristics, everything's going to be really strong and value focused. They've got over 350 holdings right now in this particular ETF. And you're going to see, I mean, if you just thought about an individual stock and you said, here's a price to earnings of 16.8, price to book of 2.55, price to sales of 1.85, and you get a little bit of a yield, dividend yield as well, you're going to go, wow, what's that stock? I'd like to know about that. Well, in this case, it's a nice ETF all packaged together for you. So it looks really strong there. And the holdings are all U.S. stocks that you're probably quite aware of, whether it's Berkshire Hathaway or banks like J.P. Morgan or Johnson & Johnson, Procter & Gamble, and so forth. So you're going to get exposure to a lot of the great U.S. stocks that I hold individually and I hold through ETFs such as this one. So looks great. And if we look at all the different sectors that this ETF will expose us to, we're going to see banks, pharmaceuticals, machinery, electric utilities, beverages, so forth and so on. So just lots of great value. It's just a fact. Like the fact that Huey Lewis was in Die Hard. And he died hard. Really hard. So I am buying and holding VTV because I think it's a great place to stash some cash right now in an uncertain market. I think it's offering great value. And all the value stocks are the ones I find myself gravitating to right now whenever I start checking out the general stock market, looking at individual stocks. It doesn't mean I like FANG. I have my FANG names. They're all filled out. I really like Facebook right now at its current price. But I'm not a big fan of general tech and a lot of other places. So I find myself gravitating towards value. Now I'm doing this by adding shares of VTV, but I'm also doing it by trading options. I'll show you one right now that I did this week when the sky was falling on Monday or Tuesday. And this is a $134 put, January 21 of 2022. So a few weeks out into next year. And for that, I got to put $135 in my pocket as a premium, and I got to activate my money that was sitting on the sidelines. And if it drops to this point, then great. I'm happy adding this ETF to my portfolio in a 100 chunk block. If you're not familiar with this or don't understand what I'm talking about, I'll link a couple videos above or down in the description so you can go check it out and see if that might be something that you would want to do as well. But overall, I think options are a great way to add these to your portfolio as well and buy the dip. I'll link that video above. So any questions on that, just holler down below. Now, I like VTV, but there are competitors out there to VTV that you could consider as well. Plenty of alternatives. For example, Schwab has one, SCHV. And Spider has one, SPYV. They pretty much do the same darn thing. Any of those three would be a great complement to some of the more robust ETFs like VOO, VUG, and VTI. With those three, you get a lot of exposure to FANG and tech. Whereas with value, you're not going to really get that. So it complements that really well to have a little bit of both, right? If one is performing particularly well at that time. So again, one more reason that I'm adding VTV. All right, so there's a little bit about VTV, the Vanguard Value ETF, and why I like it, why I like value, why I'm adding it. Also, why I'm going to continue to roll out my options in hopes that the market pulls back a little bit and I can pick up some more shares. So if you have any questions on this, please ask down below. Please like and subscribe. And you know what? I'm off to watch Die Hard, a Christmas movie. We'll see you next time. Take care. Whoop.